General Hospital spoilers tease that Curtis's relentless pursuit of Jacinda has evolved into an obsession that is driving him deeper into dangerous territory. He's no longer just trying to find her, he's desperately trying to control the narrative, and with each failed attempt, his desperation grows. The plan to have Jacinda testify that Drew used ketamine on his own could destroy Drew's life, and Curtis will stop at nothing to make sure it happens. The more Curtis chases after Jacinda, the more reckless his actions become. His obsession blinds him to the consequences, pushing him to make decisions that could have far-reaching effects on everyone involved. As Curtis becomes more obsessed with finding Jacinda, his fixation begins to cloud his judgment. What initially started as a simple plan to protect his wife and bring Drew down has turned into an all-consuming mission. Curtis doesn't just want to take down Drew, he wants to regain control of his life, his marriage, and the situation that has spiraled beyond his grasp. But the more he presses forward, the more his obsession grows, and with it, his inability to think rationally. Every failed lead, every close call, only serves to fuel his determination, making him more unpredictable and dangerous. Meanwhile, Drew is fully aware of Curtis's pursuit and knows that if Curtis finds Jacinda first, the consequences could be disastrous. With the new information Drew has received from Kai, he understands that time is running out, and Curtis is closing in. Drew knows that he has to stop Curtis before it's too late, not just to clear his name, but to protect everything he has worked for. Drew has been caught in a whirlwind of manipulation, lies, and the constant fear of losing control, but now, with this new information, he's prepared to take action. He can't afford to be passive any longer. He must move quickly and decisively to stop Curtis before the plan to ruin him is set into motion. Drew's strategy is clear. He must act faster than Curtis and prevent Jacinda from being found by anyone who might use her to take him down. Curtis's plan relies entirely on Jacinda's cooperation. And if Drew can find her first, he can ensure that Curtis's attempt to discredit him fails before it even begins. But Drew also understands that Curtis is not the only threat. Curtis may be blinded by his obsession, but Drew knows the risks are higher than just losing his reputation. His entire life is on the line. He can't afford to let Curtis get away with this. And the more Drew learns about the situation, the more he realizes how deep the web of deceit has become. Every move Curtis makes brings them closer to a point of no return. The tension between the two men is escalating. Curtis's obsession with Jacinda is driving him to make irrational choices, while Drew's calculated responses are becoming more urgent. Drew knows that Curtis is blinded by his fixation, but he also knows that if he underestimates Curtis, it could cost him everything. As Curtis's pursuit of Jacinda intensifies, Drew is forced to stay several steps ahead. Every lead Curtis follows could bring him closer to unraveling Drew's life, and Drew must make sure that doesn't happen. The stakes are higher than ever. And the risk of failure is greater than it has ever been. As Curtis digs deeper, it becomes clear that he's willing to sacrifice anything, including his own moral compass, to make sure Drew is discredited. He doesn't just want to expose Drew, he wants to destroy him, and his obsession is beginning to overshadow any rational thinking. Curtis has crossed a line. And as his actions become more erratic, Drew's focus sharpens. Drew knows that Curtis's plan is a dangerous game. One that could not only destroy Drew's reputation but also hurt the people he cares about. With Jacinda caught in the middle, Drew has no choice but to protect her, even if it means making difficult, risky decisions. Drew's plan involves outsmarting Curtis, but it also requires him to manipulate the situation to his advantage. Drew understands that he can't just rely on brute force or confrontation. He needs to outthink Curtis, anticipate his next move, and take control of the situation before it escalates further. As Curtis grows more obsessed, Drew becomes more strategic. He knows that Curtis is vulnerable, and if he can exploit that vulnerability, he can stop the plan in its tracks. However, the clock is ticking. The deeper Curtis gets into his search for Jacinda, the more desperate he becomes. Drew has to act fast, knowing that one mistake could cost him everything. Curtis's fixation is driving him to make reckless decisions, and Drew is ready to use that to his advantage. But the question remains, how far will Curtis go in his obsession to ruin Drew? And how much more will Drew have to sacrifice to ensure that Curtis fails? The story between Drew and Curtis is quickly becoming a battle of wills. Curtis, consumed by his need to get back at Drew and save his marriage, is willing to do whatever it takes, while Drew is locked in a race against time, trying to prevent the fallout from Curtis's increasingly dangerous obsession. Each man is trying to outsmart the other, but as the stakes rise, it becomes clear that the consequences of their actions could have irreversible effects. The longer Curtis chases Jacinda, the more reckless and dangerous his decisions become. Drew, knowing that he must stop Curtis, prepares to counter every move, but he too is walking a fine line between victory and defeat. The situation is spiraling, and neither man can afford to lose. Curtis's obsession with Jacinda and his desperate attempts to discredit Drew are pushing both men to their limits. Every decision, every move could be the one that makes or breaks them. And with Jacinda's fate hanging in the balance, Drew knows that he must make his next move count. As the stakes continue to rise, the tension between Drew and Curtis is only getting more intense. And it's clear that this battle is far from over. The question now is whether Drew can stop Curtis before the damage becomes irreversible, or if Curtis's obsession will finally push them both over the edge. Felicia is still deep in the search for Jacinda, but her pursuit is becoming more complicated by the day. The investigation, which once seemed straightforward, has now evolved into something much more tangled and dangerous. Despite Felicia's years of experience as an investigator, Jacinda has proven to be elusive, slipping through her fingers at every turn. Meanwhile, the stakes are rising for both Jacinda and those around her. What was once a simple matter of finding a person is now entangled with secrets, lies, and agreements that no one anticipated. The latest revelation shakes everything to its core. Jacinda has struck a deal with Drew. This agreement is a game changer, shifting the entire trajectory of the unfolding drama. Jacinda's decision to work with Drew, perhaps out of desperation or self-preservation, has put her on a path that directly conflicts with the pursuits of both Felicia and Curtis. The stakes of Drew's plan are now higher than ever, and Jacinda's involvement complicates things further. What was once just a plan to discredit Drew has now turned into a more intricate personal battle, one where Jacinda's actions play a pivotal role. Drew's negotiation with Jacinda could be seen as a calculated move on his part. Knowing that if he can keep her quiet and under his control, he might be able to thwart Curtis's plan and protect his own future. For Jacinda, the deal likely presents a way out of the escalating pressure she's under, perhaps offering her a chance to escape the dangerous web she finds herself caught in. But this agreement also marks a turning point. Jacinda is no longer just a pawn in Curtis's game, she has become a player in her own right, with the power to change the course of everything. The question remains whether Drew's offer will be enough to keep Jacinda on his side or if she will ultimately break free and reveal everything she knows. What makes this situation even more volatile is the way Jacinda is now actively avoiding both Felicia and Curtis. Her efforts to remain hidden, to evade capture, are not just strategic, they are deeply personal. Jacinda's desire to stay out of the reach of those who are hunting her is palpable. She knows that the stakes for her are as high as they've ever been. As Felicia closes in, Jacinda becomes more resourceful, more determined to keep her whereabouts a secret. She's not just running from Curtis and Felicia, she's running from the very consequences of the choices she's made. The path she's chosen, to align herself with Drew, has set her on a collision course with Curtis's plans, and now, she's trapped in a dangerous game where everyone around her is a threat. Felicia, frustrated and running out of leads, has no idea that Jacinda has already made a deal with Drew. Her focus is solely on locating Jacinda and bringing her back into the fold, unaware that Jacinda is intentionally evading her at every step. Felicia's expertise as an investigator is being tested in ways she hasn't encountered before. Jacinda is not just a missing person, she has become a moving target, and every moment she remains free adds to the complexity of the situation. Felicia's drive to find Jacinda grows stronger with every passing day, but so does Jacinda's resolve to stay out of reach. In the meantime, Curtis's obsession with Jacinda is only deepening. He's convinced that finding her and using her testimony is the key to taking Drew down. But with Jacinda in hiding, Curtis's plan is becoming more difficult to execute. He doesn't know that Jacinda is no longer working in his interest. Instead, she's working with Drew to prevent his plan from succeeding. Curtis is still under the illusion that Jacinda can be used to his advantage, unaware that the woman he's desperately searching for has already made her choice. The realization of this could come as a shock to Curtis, one that forces him to rethink everything he thought he knew about the situation. The situation is growing more complicated with every passing day. Jacinda, caught between Drew's offer and Curtis's pursuit, is now in control of her own fate in a way that no one anticipated. She's not just hiding from two determined pursuers, she's navigating a complex web of deals, threats, and loyalties. Her desire to escape the looming dangers has led her to make a choice that could either save or doom her. Drew's agreement with her might offer her some protection. But it also comes with its own set of risks. If she's found by either Felicia or Curtis, her entire plan could unravel, and she could be forced to face the consequences of everything she's done. What was once a race to find Jacinda has now turned into a high-stakes game of cat and mouse, with Jacinda at the center of it all. As Felicia and Curtis continue their relentless pursuit, they are unaware that Jacinda is always one step ahead, hiding her true intentions while trying to stay out of their reach. Drew, meanwhile, is playing his own game. Knowing that the longer Jacinda stays hidden, the more control he can gain over the situation. The deeper everyone gets involved, the more unpredictable the outcome becomes. Will Jacinda remain hidden from those who are hunting her, or will she be forced to confront the consequences of her choices? And in the end, who will come out on top, Drew, Curtis, or Jacinda herself? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. Nothing is as it seems, and the twists and turns of this story are far from over. Curtis's obsession with stopping Drew and his relentless pursuit of Jacinda are leading him down a dangerous path. One that is not only threatening his own future but also putting the people he cares about in jeopardy. What started as a plan to protect his wife, Portia, and clear the chaos surrounding him has now escalated into an uncontrollable obsession that could have disastrous consequences for those closest to him. As Curtis digs deeper into his pursuit, his focus on Jacinda and his obsession with taking down Drew are blinding him to the collateral damage his actions are causing. With each new step, Curtis becomes more consumed by his desire to control the situation and manipulate the narrative in his favor. He believes that if he can just find Jacinda and force her to do his bidding, he will have the upper hand in the fight against Drew. But Curtis is failing to see the bigger picture. His obsession is not just affecting his relationship with Drew. It's causing irreparable harm to the relationships that matter most to him, his relationships with Portia, Jordan, and Trina. Portia, his wife, is caught in the crossfire of Curtis's growing obsession. She can see that something is wrong with him, his relentless pursuit of Jacinda, his disregard for the danger his actions are causing, and his inability to focus on anything other than his quest for revenge. She is increasingly worried about Curtis's mental state and the toll his obsession is taking on their marriage. Portia knows that Curtis is trying to protect her, but the more he dives into this dark world, the more he alienates her. She begins to fear that Curtis's drive for control might destroy everything they have worked for, including their relationship. At the same time, Curtis's actions are causing tension with Jordan, his former partner, who is deeply concerned about the consequences of his single-minded obsession. Jordan, a seasoned detective, is no stranger to the dangers that come with chasing down a lead or getting too caught up in a case. However, she can't help but feel that Curtis is losing himself in this pursuit and is no longer making decisions with the level-headedness that once defined him. Her concern for him grows, but her attempts to warn him fall on deaf ears. Curtis is so focused on his plan to take down Drew and deal with Jacinda that he fails to see how his actions are putting his relationships with Portia and Jordan in serious peril. Trina, too, is caught in the fallout of Curtis's growing obsession. She's become increasingly worried about her father's behavior, seeing how his focus on his vendetta is affecting his relationships with the people he loves. She's not blind to the danger that Curtis's actions could cause, and she fears that the pursuit of justice, however well-intentioned, might bring even more harm. Trina, trying to protect her family, finds herself in a difficult position. torn between supporting her father and understanding the impact of his choices on the rest of their family. Curtis's obsession is now driving him to make reckless decisions, putting not just himself but also the people he loves at risk. The deeper he gets into this conflict with Drew, the more he alienates the people around him, creating an atmosphere of distrust and fear. His once solid relationships with Portia, Jordan, and Trina are beginning to unravel as he becomes more fixated on his mission. And he fails to see how close he is to losing everything that matters. The danger Curtis is causing is no longer limited to his own life. It's now threatening to unravel the stability of those closest to him. Portia, Jordan, and Trina find themselves in the middle of a situation they never expected, facing the fallout of Curtis's obsession and the damage it is causing. With every step Curtis takes toward his goal, the danger grows not only for Drew but for everyone around him. The consequences of his actions are becoming clearer. Curtis may have been too blinded by his need for control to recognize that his quest for justice is now putting his entire family at risk. As Curtis's obsession continues to escalate, the question becomes whether he can regain control before it's too late or whether his actions will lead to the destruction of everything he holds dear. What was once a desire to protect his family and set things right has now spiraled into a dangerous game of obsession and manipulation that could have irreversible consequences. And with Portia, Jordan, and Trina at the heart of the storm, the stakes have never been higher. Curtis is on the verge of losing everything: his family, his peace of mind, and possibly even his future, if he doesn't take a step back and recognize the true cost of his actions. Curtis's relentless obsession with his plan to take down Drew has now reached a point of no return. In his mind, the stakes are too high, and the desire for justice, or perhaps revenge, has clouded his judgment to the point where he is willing to sacrifice everything. As Curtis becomes more entrenched in his pursuit, the thing he values most, the relationship with Portia, begins to slip through his fingers. The very woman he swore to protect is now caught in the crossfire of his ambition and his growing obsession. And Curtis is willing to throw everything away for the chance to succeed in his plan. Portia, who has stood by Curtis through thick and thin, is now forced to face the painful reality that Curtis's priorities have shifted. No longer the man who would do anything to keep his family safe, Curtis is becoming someone else, someone who is driven solely by a need for control, power, and vindication. His obsession with taking down Drew has consumed him entirely, and in doing so, he has begun to neglect the very people who care about him. The emotional toll of Curtis's single-minded pursuit of this plan has been significant. Portia can see the changes in him. The way he is distancing himself emotionally, the way he has become obsessed with the idea of getting Jacinda and using her to destroy Drew. As Curtis's plan progresses, he starts making more reckless decisions, pushing away those who once supported him, including Portia. The woman who once believed in Curtis's ability to protect their family and make the right choices is now grappling with the heartbreaking reality that Curtis is no longer the man she married. She is left to wonder if she is truly a part of his future or just a casualty of his obsession. Curtis is so blinded by his need for control that he fails to see the damage he is causing to the most important relationships in his life. Portia, hurt and disillusioned, begins to question whether Curtis is the man she thought he was. His actions speak louder than words. He is so consumed by his plan that he no longer prioritizes their relationship, their family, or even their happiness. Curtis's single-minded pursuit of his goal has become an all-consuming force, and Portia begins to fear that if he doesn't change course soon, he might lose everything: her love, their future, and the life they were building together. The breaking point comes when Curtis makes the ultimate choice. He decides to fully commit to his plan, no matter the cost. In a shocking moment, Curtis acknowledges that the importance of his mission outweighs his commitment to Portia. His ambition, his need to succeed, and his obsession with getting Jacinda's testimony to destroy Drew have become his driving force, and he's willing to sacrifice the love and support of the woman who has always been there for him. Curtis's decision to put his plan above his marriage marks a tragic turning point. He is now lost in his obsession, unable to see the destruction it's causing to the people who once meant the world to him. Portia is left devastated by Curtis's decision. She can no longer ignore the painful truth. Curtis is so fixated on his mission that he is willing to let her go. The betrayal cuts deep. And Portia is forced to face the reality that Curtis's obsession has become more important to him than the woman who has always stood by his side. The pain of this realization leaves Portia with a difficult choice. Can she continue to stand by a man who has chosen his vendetta over her? Or is it time for her to walk away and protect herself from the man he has become? As Curtis dives deeper into his plan, the consequences of his actions become more severe. His obsession with Drew. His desire to control the situation, and his willingness to sacrifice everything for the sake of his plan have pushed him to a breaking point. The man he was, the man Portia loved, is slipping away. Replaced by someone who will stop at nothing to get what he wants. This new version of Curtis, consumed by his obsession and his need to win, is alienating everyone around him. And as the pieces of his life begin to crumble, he faces the harsh truth. No victory will feel worth it if he has nothing left to show for it. This development is one of the most shocking twists yet. Curtis is no longer the man who would do anything to protect his family. He is now someone who will sacrifice his own happiness, his marriage, and the love of the woman who trusted him for the sake of a plan that may never even succeed. His obsession with Drew has become a destructive force. And the cost of his fixation is far greater than he ever anticipated. Curtis's decision marks the beginning of what could be a catastrophic downfall. His obsession has now led him to a crossroads. The very thing he's fought for, his relationship with Portia, has been sacrificed in the process. Now, with everything unraveling around him, Curtis must come to terms with the true cost of his choices. The price of his obsession may prove to be more than he can bear, and what once seemed like a path to victory may now lead to a deeper and more irreversible tragedy.